final, and it's the second segment of today's edition of the program Wake Up Sierra Leone. We're going to evaluate the last 6 months of President Bill's government, including his trip to China, updates on the Lungi Bridge project, his agricultural farm, and of course, recently harvested, on his farm, and among other things. So in the studios this morning, we have the Minister of Information and Civic Education, Chernoba, and also Thomas Dixon, who is a media analyst. Good morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure having you, as always.
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 Thank you.
Let's start on a very soft note. Siba, you've heard from the intro. Will you just give us an update, an umbrella view as to the issues mentioned in that intro?
Well, I think the appropriate place to start always in a week like this is to comment on the unfortunate disaster that happened at Shell, New Road, a couple of days ago. We now know that at least 9 Sierra Leoneans died, and we are also suspect that quite a few might still be caught under the rubble. A 7-story building collapsed. His Excellency has already issued a statement expressing condolences on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone, and I join him on behalf of, as the government spokesman, to express our sincere condolences to all those who lost their lives. And I understand that there's some people who know me. I grew up not very far from that area. These are our people. President Bio cares deeply about these Sierra Leoneans and about these kinds of issues. That's why he's also ordered a comprehensive investigation into what happened, and we'll make sure that the findings of that investigation are made public. As I said yesterday at another platform, the essence of this is not to cast aspersions or point fingers, but to do everything we can to prevent a recurrence and to ensure that the primary function of our government, which is to protect lives and property, is one that we take seriously and will continue to carry out. So this is it's a solemn moment for our country, and our hearts go out to all those people. Now, to your point about what's happened in the past 6 months in government, I think that Sierra Leone is undoubtedly in a positive trajectory. Things are moving in the right direction. I don't think any objective observer of the economy, of opportunities, will suggest otherwise. So we'll take the economy, we'll start with that. You look at inflation rates. We had peaked at over 50%. We now know that we're now in the 20s. This is a significant reduction. That our inflation rates are reducing at a rate slower than others within the sub-region. So this is a sign that we have managed to essentially not just flatten the curve, but also bend the curve. So those are positive signs. And that is also beginning to bear fruit as well in terms of other commodities in the market. You take fuel, the situation. Fuel, we've managed to reduce that to a predictable formula. And within that formula, for the first time, people can now expect that when things change in the global market, it is reflected in the market in our country. So we're seeing a reduction as well. So you look at trends like that within the economy. Inflation is a very good marker. The stabilization of our foreign currency. I think the Sierra Leoneans know that, yes, we're still in difficult times. I don't want to miss that. And our hearts are with the people of this country. We understand that things are tough. But I'm saying in terms of the measures we're putting in place, you're beginning to see things move in the right direction. I will talk about another sector. For example, you think about the issue of foreign affairs, which is important in terms of our standing in the world, how we're perceived by the rest of the world. Sierra Leone, did it just go to the Security Council? We used our presidency to do something that's unprecedented. For the first time, we tabled the question of Africa's representation and fairness at the Security Council at that very platform. First time in its history. Over 50 years we were there. We didn't use it to advance our own selfish needs. We used it, His Excellency the President championed a major issue. And just a few days ago, we saw the United States come out for the very first time saying, because of the leadership of His Excellency President Bio, the US is now following and say, we support Africa's 2 seats request for the Security Council. That's an unprecedented major move. What that does is it continues to transform the image of our country in the eyes of the world. We look at major investments. I know we're going to talk about travels. His Excellency went to China. By the way, His Excellency was not planning to go to China personally. The state of Sierra, because he had just done a state visit to China. But the president of China reached out to His Excellency and said, for such an important meeting on China-Africa relations, the current president of the Security Council, because of your posture, your position as a leader, you need to be here. And he made personal overtures and changed his schedule so that he can make allowances for His Excellency. And when we went there, the press secretary's office has released a summary of some of the things that he was able to bring back, not just the fact that China's commitment of $50 billion to be spent in Africa over the next 3 years. Sierra Leone is positioned to get that. 50 million signed for Smart Sierra Leone project, an agreement signed on Digital Village project as well. The Mineral Wealth Fund, which I think we have not discussed yet enough, is a major initiative that has the potential to be a primary economic game changer. For eons in this country, we've all decried the fact that while we're blessed with such vast amounts of natural resources, we are recipients of only a paltry bit of the returns from those mineral wealth. What happens is, for example, in the last year, in terms of exploitation and export of our wealth, was about $1 billion. What did we get back in terms of returns? $25–30 million. That is a shame. That is modern day plunder. But this is because we were not in the business, both in terms of investment, but also in terms of being on the value chain. What the Mineral Wealth Fund does is the first state-owned. The state has the majority there, and it's basically a private sector-run, nationally owned Mineral Wealth Fund. We've now passed papers in cabinet that allows us to take control of our resources in some of our mining deposits that are underexplored, unexplored right now, and we're using that to have major conversations about how the states can attract investment. So in China, the agreement that was signed there includes just not investments in its own Kolili iron ore deposit, but also that it will be a basis, because it was a framework agreement, for critical infrastructure with the best and the biggest infrastructure companies in China. This is a huge win for this country. The Chinese government also awarded us, major for our feed saloon initiative, a fish export certificate that allows our fish farmers in this country for the first time to be able to sell directly into the Chinese market. What used to happen in the past is the Chinese vessels will come and illegally sometimes exploit our waters, and they steal our fish and go. We get no benefit. Our farmers cannot sell in your market because we did not get certification. The minister has worked incredibly hard to ensure that we get that certification so we can sell directly into the Chinese market. And then we know that the Chinese government will continue to increase their development assistance to Sierra Leone by over 200 million yuan. So there's a wide array of benefits that we continue to gain from these travels that His Excellency just made, for example, to the People's Republic of China. But that's just, again, one sector. If you look at any sector you touch across this country, you take information. What we have done over the last 6 months is to continue to expand the space. I just was in the UK and I spoke to some journalists who were here witnessing the state opening of Parliament. They said, even in the UK, it doesn't happen that immediately after the state opening of Parliament, you have a press and civic engagement event where you have the leader of the opposition, the leader of government's business, sitting on the same panel, discussing the president's speech and having a discussion about how we move the country forward, hosted by the government and including civil society. We're changing the dynamic of public and civic engagement in this country. We've opened up multiple opportunities. The president was just at a town hall. We've just held multiple other town halls since then. We've just done one in Waterloo, where we focused on the environment. We're doing one on higher education as well. We've done one on peace and national cohesion. And in each of these, one of the things that stands out is we are having radical inclusion. We're bringing everybody on board. We make sure the opposition is there, we make sure civil society is there, and everybody has a voice. So, are we where we're supposed to be? By no means. But are we laying the foundation, coming off of a very tough economic period globally, and as well felt very severely by our people in this country, but laying the foundation for the transformation for us to bend the curve? I think any objective analysis, any rational analysis and observation of the fact will lead to one overwhelming conclusion, and that is we're on the way up.
I think you've laid the premise as to suggestions from your end. I mean, from the end of the presidency. Thomas Dixon, um, you are one of those whom I believe has been very critical of the Mineral Wealth Fund. Is it one that is prudent at this moment for Sierra Leone, just as the minister already highlighted?
Before I speak to the Mineral Wealth Fund, I think I want to join the minister to also send a message of condolence to those families who lost loved ones at Shell. And I also want to commend those who are engaged in the exercise of rescue. And I want to use this platform to commend the National Disaster Management Agency for coordinating. And also I want to use the platform to commend JB Logistics, Gentle Group of companies. And this morning I have an information that the Marampa Mines is bringing in one of the largest cranes in the country to help in the process of rescuing those who are trapped in the rubbles. So I want to use this opportunity to send my condolence message to them, and I want to say that those who are in the hospital will continue to pray for them, and those who are in the rubbles, we hope and pray that they are still alive and that we'll get them out and get them recuperated and get them back on. As government has said that they are going to stage an investigation. We hope that this will be an investigation that will be fair, because we all know that we have very poor standards in this country, and which is the responsibility of government in, government out, to have improved the standards. Goods that we are buying are very poor standard. If you go to Standards Bureau, they lack some of the equipment. And if we talk about government protecting lives and property, these are some of the things that they should be investing in terms of protecting the life of the people. You can see more young people are dying from food poisoning. You see people dying now from substandard structure, either as a result of engineering defect or as a result of poor standard materials. So we hope that this investigation will not just be an ordinary investigation, but after it will strengthen some of these institutions that should enhance public safety. Now, speaking on the Mineral Wealth Fund, the Mineral Wealth Fund for me, I think was, and I told the Minister of Finance who is in charge of it at his press conference, that you cannot do a Mineral Wealth Fund just on a geophysical survey. There are many surveys. Geophysical survey will give you indicators of minerals here and there. But mining companies spend billions of dollars to get the quantity of mineral that is in a particular location, to get the value of the mineral, the quality of the mineral. So you cannot just, and no mining company in its right senses will just come to government for a Mineral Wealth Fund based on geophysical survey. They would have to do geospatial, they would have to do other survey drilling, exploration to get the quality, the number of minerals that are there, and so on and so forth. And the problem we are having is that we have, in the Mineral Wealth Fund, we seem to have a lot of people at the background. We seem to have former NPRC strongman Karifa Kago. We seem to have Igor Silberud, who is a Russian, heading, and we don't know if there is no Sierra Leonean with the qualification to head it. And what is sad about the Mineral Wealth Fund is that the president went to Parliament a month ago, and the president did not talk about the Mineral Wealth Fund. Suddenly, we saw the president signing an agreement with China Engineering Group, and we did not see the Minister of Mines there, who is the expert in the area, could have given his advice. We saw the Russian guy and the Minister of Finance signing this document. So I think like the minister said, there are lots of explanation, lots of things that the government needs to bring out to the people on the mineral wealth front. The minister talked about lots of things about inflation and the economy. According to the World Economic Forum Index, Sierra Leone economy is repressed. That is at February 2024. This economy is repressed. I agree with the minister that they've made, on paper, we've made reduction in inflation. But in reality, inflation is still there. Things that we produce in Sierra Leone, if actually there is decline in inflation, things like pepper will not move from 13,000 to 15,000 euros. I go to the market often. Things like now we are producing onions to PC and so on. Things like that will not move from 2,000, 4,000 euros to now 10,000 euros. In some cases, 5,000 euros for one onion. So you look at all of these things, and again, when we talk about inflation, you look at the commodity, the rice as our staple food. We are promised that when they put the charges on rice, the tax on rice, it will not lead to increase in prices. But what we've seen by the Minister of Finance, Fatamadi, he said that on radio and here on AYV, that the 5% tax on rice will not lead to increase. Government would have to, in fact, government own the stores. Big talk. At the end of the day, reality is rice has moved from 800,000 euros a bag to now over 1 million euros a bag. And it all depends on the quality of rice you want. If you want more quality of rice, you have to spend at least 1.5 million euros to get the best quality of rice to eat. So the people are suffering. We cannot have an economy that is better on paper, and in the pots and pockets of people, the economy is not better. He talked about the traveling foreign bilateral relationship of the president. In 6 months, President Bio has traveled 15 times. I have the records here, and I will give them. On the 1st of March, President, some of this traveling, let me state it clearly, are statutory. The president has to be there, like attending the United Nations Summit, like attending the AU, the ECOWAS Summit. But there are others that are completely discretionary, like even the recent one you just showed, a symposium. There's a symposium, and the president is not even the keynote speaker, he's one of the speakers. It's not even, I've checked the website, he's not even the keynote speaker, he's one of the speakers. But as time progresses, I will give the name of the keynote speaker. Let me give the 15 traveling in 6 months of the president, excluding the first lady, because in the treasury of Sierra Leone, the Bank of Sierra Leone, we have 3 accounts on the office of the president. You have the special interest account to the secretary to the president. You have accounts tag overseas and local traveling. They have another account, office of the first lady, meaning all what the president is enjoying belong to the people of Sierra Leone. And it is our money, and it is also good that people will be demanding accountability on presidential traveling. It is good that they are demanding accountability. What is the president traveling for? Owing to the fact that according to the Bank of Sierra Leone recent statement, financial statement, our foreign reserve has plummeted from 2.7 months to now 2.4 months. In fact, rumors are saying that it is now about 1 month. So you have to be careful about traveling. On the 1st of March, President Bio visited Cheng Steel Plant in China. On the 6th of March, President Bio met the president of UAE to advance bilateral relations, which the foreign minister can do, the ambassador to UAE can do. On the 25th of March, President Bio was in Pennsylvania, USC, to deliver the 3rd annual Distinguished Lecture in African Studies of the Center for African Studies at the University of Pennsylvania. It's discretionary. On the 29th of April, President Bio was in Kenya for the World Bank International Development Association for Heads of State Summit. That is statutory. The president has to be there. On the 5th of May, President Bio was at the 15th session of the Islamic Summit of Member States of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. It's also statutory. On the 14th May, President Bio was in Paris to deliver a keynote address on clean cooking. That is discretionary. On the 31st of May, President Bio was in Seoul, South Korea, for the Korean African Summit. It's also statutory because all the heads of state are there to jostle for fund and development for their country. On the 4th of June, President Bio was in Vienna to co-chair the high-level Sierra Leone Investment Roundtable on renewable energy and food security, for which we, according to government information, we have over $800 million in pledges, which is also good for the country, and it is statutory because the president has to be there to convince investors to buy into the idea of Feed Sierra Leone. On the 8th of July, Bio was in Nigeria for the 65th ordinary session of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS. That is also statutory. On the 25th of July, President Bio was in Paris for the Sports for Sustainable Development Summit. That is also discretionary. On the 7th of August, so at least the president is traveling 2 times every month. This is excluding the president who go tell us for being Namibia. It exclude them in February, in late February. President and the wife then go tell us for being in Namibia. So there are a lot, about 15 traveling in the last 6 months of the president. He also talked about my brother talked about the stability of the currency. Yes, it is good. It is true that the currency, Sierra Leone's currency, is very, very much stable against the dollar. Except for few weeks or a month, wherein the currency, it has also begun to increase from 22.3 to now 22.4. So I think, and I when I was reading the monetary policy of the Bank of Sierra Leone, they were very cautious when they were talking about the currency stability. They were very, very much cautious that we need to be careful. Government is doing a lot of bank borrowing, and this is something this government initially said that they will not embark on, but they are doing a lot of bank borrowing. It is understandable. It's also helping the banks, according to the Bank of Sierra Leone statement. It's also, government is using it to pay people. So these are the things the minister talked about. And we have to note that when it comes to inflation on food, we should also know that, according to WFP, 82% of Sierra Leoneans are food insecure. 18% are severely food insecure. These are reports, public reports, that are out there. So if the president, for example, is saying that I'm doing fine on agriculture, I'm doing fine on the economy, I should be able to feel it in reality. It is not about talking it. It's about actualizing it in the lives of the citizens of the country.
Dixon, when the minister was making his submission, well, from what he said in the studio plus all that government communicates out there, their position is we're not there, but we're making progress. And they allude certain benefits to the president's travels. Does that suffice to qualify for progress made?
Of course, you can say, nobody will say that we've not been making progress in some sectors. But we've also not been making progress in other sectors. We've been making progress in some, we've not been making progress in other sectors. And I think it's good. I will not sit here and say the president has not done, the government has not done anything. But we are talking about a government that has spent 6 years in office. They should not be telling us that, we are making baby steps, we are putting the blocks. We believe that they should have put the blocks in the first inning. They should have made the baby steps in the first inning. Now we should be making giant strides. We should not be 82% food insecure. We should not be struggling with some of the health indicators. Go online, see the health indicators. It's a government.
Did we have the right foundation as a nation for this level of accelerated progress and development that you speak of?
If we had the right foundation, yeah, well, Sierra Leone was moving. Sierra Leone was moving. We had our problems, but Sierra Leone was moving. We had the government came, they said that they will fight corruption. They said they are going to fight corruption, to weed out corruption. What we've seen is that they fight corruption elsewhere, and they fail to concentrate on corruption on themselves. We saw when the Auditor General, for example, said that he's going to investigate the office of the president. And look at some of these travelings. The problem of the Auditor General is to look at some of these traveling, and some of which he found forged receipts. And he has become somebody that we should celebrate. We are now maligning her because of what she did. This is what is happening in the country. There are areas you will say, okay, this country, Sierra Leone is a developing country, and the president did not meet much, but we are making progress. But there are areas, the president told us in his manifesto that in 6 months he will transform the economy of this country. He should not be telling us, giving us excuses. He said it. He knew what he saw before 2018. He knew what he saw, and he told us in 6 months the economy of this country will transform. But in reality, what happened? The economy became very, very much worse for the people of this country. The president makes several promises. He even talked about reducing traveling in the SLPP manifesto, New Direction manifesto of 2018. He said he will not be traveling, and Esbai Kurma spent about $4 million in traveling. In just 5 years, the president spent the government spent $28 million on traveling. And mark you, the Japanese helped us to build an hospital for $16 million at Lumley. $28 million could give us 2 modern hospitals in this country.
There's quite a lot to talk about and touch on. Let's come back to the minister. Lungi Bridge. For over 2 decades, from late President Ahmed Tijan Kabal of blessed memory to Anes Kurma to now Madabiu, there's Lungi Bridge. And what we read from news is in 3 months it should be up. What's the assured update on Lungi Bridge, because too much information is flying around?
I was wondering at some point whether I was just here to listen, and I'll have a chance to have my bite, since I'm keeping my eyes on the time. And
you would.
My dear brother from the Albert Academy, I'm very proud to see that he's wearing his colors of the greatest academic institution in Sierra Leone.
Thank you.
So I can see that he's done some research, but I think it is my job as his senior to point out the discrepancies in his research.
I respect that, sir.
Put out here just now. When he was speaking, he mentioned...
You would, please, but just touch on the Lungi Bridge, and then you end with his responding to what you wanted to respond to his issue.
Is a commitment that the government has made. If you say that news is flying around, as one of the premier media houses in the country, the only authoritative voice on news in this country should come from the government and our official channels. The last time we issued a press release on this subject was in 2023. And we outlined exactly the steps that had been taken in that press release, and we had announced, so there's not been anything new. What happened is recently, some people took that same press release, started sharing it around to essentially cause chaos. Here's the thing. The best judge of somebody's future action is their past action. President Bio is deeply committed to that elusive dream. Long before President Bio became president here, Emerson sang Lungi Bridge past the world done, past the rapture. This has become an elusive dream. There's a reason it's been a complex, difficult project. The last feasibility study puts the cost at over $1 billion. What President Bill does not want to do, and he will not do, is to mortgage the entire economy of this country to build one bridge. He doesn't want to do that. We did that in the 80s. We wanted to host the OAU summit here. We spent like we were drunken sailors. And what happened? After the pomp and pageantry of the ECOWAS summit, the OAU summit here, what happened? The economy collapsed. It's an expensive venture. It requires sane, steady, economic decisions. I can assure you that some of the conversations we're having, including on the Mineral Wealth Fund, which my brother pointed out here, are to ensure that we have the right economic tools to deliver on that promise responsibly and in the best interest of this country. It's very important for people to understand that. Complex conversations are ongoing. The company, in that press release I released last year, the architectural company is one of the best in the world. The China Railway, which is one of the largest and most formidable, have come and they've done studies. The conversations are now around the financing model. And this is why the Mineral Wealth Fund should be something that we're excited about as Sierra Leoneans, because it gives us the opportunity to see, without going to borrow now on our current asset that we have, we can borrow maybe or mobilize resources based on unexplored and unexploited mineral wealth that we have, the natural resources that we have, to make major infrastructural investments in the country. So I can assure the people of this country, as President Bio has said repeatedly, George him when he's done. And this is a commitment that he's made. So as I was pointing out, my brother mentioned travels. It's important to note that what he has done here, and he's a very brilliant man, is to mix data. This conversation was supposed to be for the past 6 months. He mixes data from the first 2018 and all, and put it all together to give. No, not on the travels. When you were referring to the economy and prices and all of that. On travels, for example, the first trips he mentioned UAE and China in March. What he didn't mention was that was one trip. It was on the way from China that His Excellency stopped in UAE to again advance the economic interest of this country. What is clear is that there is a certain, almost, I think, obsession with His Excellency's travels. This is a president that has led the true transformation.
To our viewers and listeners, it's 10 o'clock. Would just like to announce to you that today would slightly overrun the program, and we apologize for any inconvenience this may cause to any of our audience. Continue.
So when it comes to travel, this president has invested in a few things. One, he's been aggressive in trying to change the image of our country and attract foreign direct investments in the country. This is something that he succeeded in doing. He has actually gotten us to the Security Council. These travels are essential to enable us to get to the places that we need to get to as a state. So he is, as I've mentioned, just with the China, number of financial resources that we've been able to mobilize to bring to the country. My brother mentioned prices and said that we are in dire economic situation. He started with the pointing out that, for example, President Bio promised he was going to transform this economy. When His Excellency came to power, inflation rate was in double digits, was over 20% when he came to power. I think the last I saw was about 19 to 21% inflation rate. He reduced it in the first year in power to single digits. It was the first time we had gone to single digits in about 5 decades in this country. He did it. You know what happened? The global economy happened. COVID happened. The world shut down. Not a single economy was untouched. So when you're making this analysis, it's also fine and right to point out the context of this analysis. And in terms of the current trajectory of our economy, I'm happy he agrees with me that yes, we're headed in the right direction. We're not perfect, as you rightly pointed out. There are a lot of things, but if you mention health, for example, which he mentioned in passing, we have been awarded for being the country that has reduced maternal mortality at the fastest rate in the world. Fastest rate. We've bent the entire curve completely on maternal mortality. And now His Excellency has announced we're going to do the same thing with child mortality. Take education. We have achieved gender parity in terms of enrollment and 100% enrollment in general in terms of our school system. This is a country, when we were growing up, literacy rates were about, before President Bill came here, literacy rates were still in their 40s and 50% in this country. He is changing that in a very radical way. That is laying the foundation. And I'm happy you pointed out that the foundations of this country were always weak. He mentions WFP data, which is interesting. What I want to challenge him to do is to compare that data to before President Bill came to power, when we had the fastest growing economy, when we had an iron ore boom. What did WFP said, even at that time, about food security in this country and where people are? So what you should look at, and this is what any smart statistician will tell you, is you're not looking at station, you're looking at trajectory. You don't look at Usayude, you look at Usayude head. And by that measure, His Excellency's government is performing incredibly well and laying the foundation. And things are still tough, and I agree with my brother. We feel that pain. And some of us are in government because we want to contribute to transforming, we want to contribute to changing how things are. So I think that I want to invite folks who are talking about travels and, oh, President likes to travel, to put it in context. I like when he was pointing out many of the travels that people point out are statutory travels. He has to go there because he's a chairman of the C10. You know, one of the things he didn't mention is President Biu went as well to Burkina Faso. The entire world relies on him to be the mediator for the military coups that are happening within the subcontinent. He's playing a leadership role, elevating the status of our country. So I think those contexts are really critical. And when you put those contexts when you put those things in context, you will see very clearly that actually there's no daylight between what we're both saying, which is things are bad, are tough, but the government has put in place intentional strategies. And one more thing he mentioned that I didn't get a chance to talk about is the Mineral Wealth Fund. I had at one point he mentioned that there's a Sierra Leonean playing a lead role in Mr. Kaifa Kagbo, and at another point he said he doesn't know whether a Sierra Leonean is capable of playing the role because he mentioned a certain person that he referred to as Russia. What I will say about the Mineral Wealth Fund is you have to understand, and I by the way, I put my hand up on one thing. We have not yet provided as much information on the Mineral Wealth Fund as we ought to, and we're working on that. We'll come out and really explain to the public, because I think it's something that my brother Thomas will be, eventually, I think you will own that, you'll be proud of it, because it's saying we all take responsibility for our own mineral wealth and we push it forward. But government doesn't have the technical and all the capacity to do it well. So what we're doing with the Mineral Wealth Fund is we're partnering with private sector actors who have experience and expertise with government ownership. So we hire consultants, we hire people with the experience and the expertise to work on this Mineral Wealth Fund so that we can actually accrue the dividend that we're supposed to accrue. And I see that some of the media has been obsessed with just one of those individuals. But they work for an entity that is owned by the government of Sierra Leone. What you need to focus on is where are the dividends going, who is accruing the resources, how do we as a people, for the first time, I went to South Africa, and whenever we talk about the mines, they ask, why don't you nationalize, why don't you take control of your mines? The first president who is willing to do it boldly is His Excellency President Julius Maada Bio. In our entire history, keep in mind how long we've been talking about mines here and mineral wealth. We now have a national mineral wealth fund. It's something we should be excited about. It's something we should own as a country. It's something we should take pride in. And I think we're going to work towards ensuring that we do that.
Our economy is not as beautiful as should be. One of our problems is the relationship between our leones and especially the USD. Very recently, it seemed to had stabilized for a while. But over the last 2 weeks, in the black market, there's an increase. So it went from 2,300,000 and something to now 2,400,000 some to 400 and something.
Yeah, there's been a slight upward tick. We've been briefed about this. As he said rightly, both the bank governor and the Minister of Finance are paying close attention to that to see. Now, there are certain things that we did right to be able to stabilize the markets, the exchange rate markets, and so we look at what has interfered with that. and what has led to this slight uptick. It's a slight uptick, and what is also not happening, it's not like we used to have in the past where every day they go up, So they're paying attention to that. We have a very competent economic management team. They're paying attention to that, to put in place, again, the things that we've been doing right, to double down on those things, to make sure we make the right adjustment, and to ensure that, again, we keep that rate as stable as we can. Keep in mind, not everything is within our control when it comes to the exchange rate market, right? There are external factors that affect it as well. There are just factors of kind of, just inflow of cash, just inflow of people, availability of the resources in the country. This is an economic problem. But our smart managers of our economy, the economic management team that includes the bank, that includes NRA, that includes the Ministry of Finance and others, are paying close attention to this, and they've briefed us in cabinet as well on the slight uptick that we saw, and they assure us that they are very confident. I think Mr. Dixon alluded to that as well. They are very confident that they will be able to arrest this and work towards actually not just slowing whatever increase, but also reverting to more favorable rates that we had before.
I listened to your brilliant submission in line with the Mineral Wealth Fund. But the worries of so many is this not just to create a situation wherein those in the trade, in the mineral trade, and say perhaps their families and friends to just benefit from same?
Actually, it's the opposite. Okay. What has been happening is it's only those in the trade that's been benefiting, and the state has not been benefiting. I just gave you the numbers. Just look at the numbers. Last year, in terms of the total value of mines that were exploited and exported out of this country, over $1 billion. We got less than 30 million. That's a scandal. That's modern day robbery of the people of this country. But that's money that goes into private sector pockets. That goes into the individuals that are running this. They buy private jets, they fly here, they do all these things, by the way, backed by their institutions and their states. But the people of Sierra Leone are not getting that. What they come back and give to us sometimes is like smaller resources here. They give small, they say, development fund here and there. Those are all paltry. But the state of Sierra Leone, the people of Sierra Leone, God blessed us with those resources. We're saying, let's be in the business now. Find the right private sector investments that come in and partner with the state. We put our own money, we put our own, and we exploit ourselves. We go sell, we sell that billion, let us say get some. And by we, I mean the state, in a very transparent process. A fund that then comes back to the people of this country. Think about it. If even 40% of that 1 billion last year came to the country, we're not going to be adopted. So we're not going to struggle now for make major investments and pay for things and stuff. It's a huge, huge fundamental shift. It's a massive transformational radical shift by President Bill. And I think once the people of Sierra Leone come to understand what this Mineral Wealth Fund is about, it's something that we will teach in schools. It's something that we'll be proud of, we'll own up to. Because it's really about us taking responsibility for our own resources and benefiting directly from it. Not somebody come like I do back in the day, then they can and give you mirror. We watch yourself, then they say, not touch the diamond, then take out and put on a pan, then go. They get millions and they give us cents. That's what we're trying to change.
The current state of the exchange rates can't be unconnected with the fact that we are yet to arrive at a situation wherein we'll be, we'll have more companies, or perhaps, see the relevant investments in agriculture that will bring us the actual returns. Just a couple of days ago, in the farm of presidents, we were told, the presidents, the livestock he has there, the chickens, they produce about 7,000 eggs on a daily basis. And it's quite huge. But in spite of same, there are many other farmers in country, also poultry farmers, who have similar structures, just as same. But there are many problems they are faced with in terms of policy and what have you. Are we seeing, is the president, being that the president is now in that trade, are we seeing a situation wherein, there will be a favorable, conditions, for particularly other farmers who also dwell in that direction? Yeah, because it sends hope to those farmers.
Yeah, I think the point of what His Excellency did was to inspire us all. inspire the people of this country and show.
So are you into farming quickly?
Me not full man. So we are into animal farming.
Animal farming.
My grandfather was the largest warrior owner in Bond district, both on the island and the mainland. My father was the director of livestock in the Ministry of Agriculture until earlier this year when he retired.
I used to work with your father, by the way.
Exactly, when he retired. So we have a very proud heritage of animal farming, and that's something that I'm investing in, and I'm continuing. I've just secured some additional piece of land. I'm trying to buy and invest more into cows. That's my family heritage. That's who I am. So for me, that's very clear. On my mom's side, they do vegetable farms in Jimmy Bagbo and stuff, but that's something as well I'm supporting different cooperatives to be able to do. But the point is, President Bio understands, and I think both Mr. Dixon and Fabian mentioned the idea of the challenges in terms of food security. If anybody knows that, it's President Bio. That's why he made Feed Salon his primary. And I say to people, when he said free education, many people, including me, doubted whether we had the resources and the will to deliver. He, by any objective measure, for goodness sake, he is a champion of transforming education. Globally recognized, he spends 22% of his budget, 9% of the GDP on education. He's saying he's doing the same thing, if not more, for feeding our people. So it's not just about the personal example and inspiration that he's showing. It's starting from one simple baseline. We have to change policies and make them right for our farmers. We have to provide the right incentives. We have to ensure that we have the right structures in place. We have to ensure that we think about the entire food ecosystem. Transport, how do they preserve? And markets, I just mentioned a big news. We can now sell to China our fish. That's massive. That's part of what we require to expand our markets. You mentioned eggs. We're having one slight problem. You're right. In the past year, we have now seen that our farmers are actually producing quite a few eggs. The problem is in the market, people go to buy, then they left the local egg and then buy the foreign egg. Why? Because the foreign egg is marginally cheaper, and people think anything that is English, Western, is superior. This is the part of, as you know, one of my obsessions is to decolonize our mindset, is that people think anything that is foreign is better.
But so a policy could address the affordability aspect.
Yes, no, but again, you know, people complain. We just imposed we removed the tariffs on rice, and people complain. So policy interventions still have limitations, because if you now impose, let's say, one policy intervention will be you impose additional taxes on imported eggs, and then people are still going to complain that government is imposing tax. So there are balances. So some of the things you can do, you can either put a push factor, you can also create carrots or sticks. So another factor, another thing you can do is to us all, when we go to the market, know, as they do in the West, that local is better. You take pride in buying Sierra Leone because it's actually better for you, health-wise. It's actually more, the protein content of it is superior. So if you buy, because it's demand and supply game, right? If the foreign egg, the Canada, the poil, the price, the Uyon price, they become better, because we know so farmer then get incentive for produce more. It's an economic game. So that's one of the things we need to do, is to really impress on the minds of Sierra Leoneans that when you're buying that foreign egg, you're supporting a farmer somewhere. It's not a farmer in Sierra Leone. You're supporting a farmer in a country that's not ours. When you buy this one, you pay that small premium, you support. But we also need to provide additional incentives to our farmers as well, to make sure that people know that it will be available in a predictable fashion. Because it's not just like you have an increase in production today and tomorrow you want to go buy the same egg in all day. So you want to make sure that it's there, there's a flow, they have a market, we can start distributing as well to major houses that use eggs and things like that. So there are different factors that the Minister of Agriculture is looking at.
You cannot take out of the conversation the role affordability plays in this.
No, it is, but affordability is not just about government intervention.
I had a conversation with someone who was praising one of the local brands of made in Salon sardines.
Yes.
And, well, they're not paying us to advertise, so we would not mention brands, but Someone was praising a made in Sierra Leone sardine. One of the things the person said, two things. One, it's more affordable. It's cheaper than the imported sardines. Yeah. Secondly, the person said, in that tin of sardine, the sardine fishes are bigger and more in quantity. So you're buying it cheaper and you're getting more sardines in it.
So I'll tell you, what you're pointing out is simple economics. In the case of SAPCO, it's a private business that has made the investment and that has figured out.
Unfortunately, it wasn't even the brand you mentioned, but continue in your submission.
Or whatever the sardine brand is. It's a private business, so that means somebody is manufacturing it, that have made that investment, that has looked at the factors of the market. Things like egg, you're talking about the entire distribution of the market, and they have a major competition in terms of there's an influx of still a lot of eggs, and those ones are really cheaper. Why ours are expensive? Because of the cost of production and the cost of bringing it to the market, because of the cost it takes for that farmer to even get that one chicken. And so what we're saying is, what we need to do is to provide additional incentives that we're doing now, and we're beginning to see that happen. So the farmers will produce more, cheaper rates, get their returns. You know, the more the idea of you're gonna get more if you can sell more, and how they sell more is if people now start buying from them. If you decide you go to the market, if just 20% of the population decide now that every time I go to the market, I'm going to buy from a local farmer, I'm going to buy the local eggs, what that is going to do is it's going to put more money in the pocket of the local farmer, and that alone will lead to an aggregate decrease in the prices. So these factors are interconnected. That's what I'm saying. In the case of a private investor, you can afford to look at the market and study it and do your packaging and all that, and make that initial investment and then sell. But even if you look at that, even with the sardine, for now, a lot of Sierra Leoneans still choose to buy the foreign brands. So we have to continue to, and this is a big part of the Feed Salon program that I'm working with the minister now that we must do, to engage the people of this country that for Feed Salon to happen, we need to love Salon and we need to buy Salon. Because it's those combination of things that will lead to us appreciating the value of our own local product and supporting our local farmers, and they will get better returns as well.
Dixon, we're rounding off.
The minister said there is certain obsession about the traveling of the president. I think when travel of the president becomes so fashionable that the president travel for fun, it is bound on the citizen to be obsessed. He said that in the whole year they reduced inflation to 8 months. I want to make slight correction. In 2020, inflation was reduced in April, in a month, for just 1 month to a single digit, and went up again. Inflation, President Bio met inflation in 2018 at 14%. Even when it is down now, it's at 34%.
In the 20s now, actually.
Oh, it's at 34%.
It's 28% now.
Okay, that's according to the latest Bank of Sierra Leone statistics. It's 34% that is out in the public. And the minister said that the traveling of the president is to improve the image. I always say this: you cannot improve the image of Sierra Leone if we still have bad, poor health sector, we still have bad roads, people are still struggling with the economy, people are in dire poverty. You cannot improve what image are you improving? To improve the image of a country, you have to develop the country, you have to make the life of the people in that country better. He also talked about the Mineral Wealth Fund. The records of government running or partnering with anybody to run businesses in Sierra Leone is very poor. Serratel collapse. Do you know that that the Sierra Leone National Diamond Company initially was run by the British, and when they left, they handed it over to the government of Sierra Leone. The government of Sierra Leone wrecked it. Look at Sierra Leone Road Transport Corporation. Look at the buses that are in there, to the point that World Bank refused to let the Road Transport Corporation manage this new Waka Fine buses. Is to tell you that government is a poor manager. And now this government is still telling us that they are going into partnership with companies to manage our wealth, for which they've signed for Tonkolili not. that they've signed with a Chinese group to come and mine. We know government is a poor manager. So also he talked about free education. The World Bank statistic about free education is out there for people to see. Yes, it's free education, but it's free of quality. Free of quality. To the point that even when we were not born, we heard of stories wherein Milty Magai, Albert Magai, they sent their children to government school, government-assisted school, even when it was not free education. Charles Francis Magai was a son when his father was prime minister of this country, and he went to CKC. Sheikh Stephen, all his children went to, all his sons, they went to the Albert Academy. So these are government assisted, but now government is trumpeting free education, free education, free education. But even the government ministers, they are afraid of sending their children to government schools or government assisted schools. It's because of lack of quality. Yes, the numbers of enrollment has increased, but again, the structures of the schools. For example, in our school, the Albert Academy, the structures of 20, 30 years are still there. The enrollment, the Ministry of Education is putting pressure on the Albert Academy to make more admission, but they are not helping the Albert Academy, for example, to get more classrooms. So the infrastructure that should enhance free quality education is not there. Okay. The minister said that we are selling our fish to China. Let me state this here. The Chinese are involved, and it is so sad nobody is mentioning it. They are involved in illegal fishing in our country, and our fishes have been going to China long before, without our consent.
The same thing here.
They have been going to China long before without our consent. What we are not having is that our fish, the resources from our sector, the water sector, they are not going to Europe. And that is troubling. And this president made mention of that he is going to help. He's going to solve that problem. We want to see that problem solved. So that people who are into fishing, companies who are into fishing would have that certificate to sell the fish. But for you to have the European certificate, there are a number of things. Like
Dixon would really like to continue this conversation. Unfortunately for us, we're out of time. Gentlemen,
I just
many
need 30
thanks
seconds
for
on the
your
education
time.
points, though. Just 30 seconds, I
Take
beg
5.
you. Just because on this question of education being free of quality, I think the facts are so different from that. I think if you look at all the data in terms of not just access, which we have now exceeded expectations on, but also performance. The best rate results now are coming from all over the country. What we have done is to level the playing field. I think that
summarizes the
more private schools.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Minister Siba, and also Thomas Dixon, for your time this morning. It's been a wonderful moment with you here, to talk on development on national issues as a whole.